Hi, everyone. I'm Eva Yazhari. I am the CEO of Beyond Capital Fund and the general partner of Beyond Capital Ventures. And today I am here with Aiko Ongodia, the CEO and founder of XENO, a goal-based investment platform based in Uganda. Hi, Aiko. Great to have you.
Excellent, Eva. Thank you for the excellent introduction.
Excellent. Great. So looking forward to diving more and hearing more from you. As you know, this is a short interview, a short video for our supporters and followers and investors to get to know you better. Tell us a little bit more about what motivated you specifically to start XENO.
That's a long question, long answer, but so the motivation just really started from an observation that people find it really difficult to fund those financial obligations that occur sometime in the future. For example, retirement, child's education, purchasing a home 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And so people often end up either asking their relatives, where I live, a lot of people depend on family and friends, or getting into so much debt, especially now that debt is so easily accessible by through these mobile apps. But also the hardworking people that are able to put away some money and could, instead of borrowing later in the future, could instead save gradually to be able to fund those financial obligations that occur in the future. So a lot of people didn't used to put away money, or if they did put away, they didn't used to invest it. And so a lot of them either were unable to fund their obligations or put away money and got very little out of it because it wasn't invested, it wasn't growing, yet inflation was just running through it. So it was from this observation that people actually would appreciate a way to conveniently put away money, to conveniently invest in order to meet a particular objective in the future. And so went through a process where how do you make that happen? And how do you make it happen at scale? So it was really to help people meet their future obligations. That's where it all started. And then everything else was running experiments to see whether the solution that we had come up with could actually work. And it did. It is so far.
Incredible. I mean, I think everybody around the world today can relate to inflation and understanding how there needs to be a mechanism for savings and investment in order to, as you say, meet goals around sending children to school or even retirement or purchasing a home. And I think you've created an incredible tool for investors or savers to be able to do that. XENO was one of our seed round investments where we led the round in Beyond Capital Ventures, and it's also a part of the Beyond Capital Fund portfolio as well, just to give everybody that background. Maybe talk a little bit more about the impact that XENO is having. You mentioned the ability to save and catch up with inflation, but what other impacts is the business having? And feel free to go into how you built out the platform as well, because I know your technology is proprietary.
Yeah, so the first thing is really just helping just one individual go through the planning phase. Yeah. And so typically, if you had money and you are in Europe or in the US and you had a problem that you needed to fund in the future, for example, retirement or child's education, you'd go and speak to your financial advisor if you had access to a financial advisor. However, that's financial advisors are very difficult to find, especially on the continent. And so, but people still need to plan whether they are able to put away $100 every month or are able to put away $10,000 every month. And for those who can do that, they still need to be able to plan whatever the quantum. And so we started by just building a platform that replicates a conversation you would have with a financial advisor if you call them up and they were good enough to invite you to their office and say, you know what, I am able to put away $100 every month. I want it to go towards my child's education. Where should I put it? What should I invest in? Should I buy a 2-year bond, a 5-year bond, a 10-year bond, or a 1-year T-bill, or a stock of this company, telecom company, or a stock of this bank? So what sorts of things would you naturally, be naturally required to tell a financial advisor? So first of all, before the financial advisor tells you, they would typically get some information from you, which information goes something like, how long are you investing for? What's your investment knowledge? What are your attitudes towards taking risk? That sort of information helps the financial advisor build a profile of you before making the recommendation for your specific case. So we built out that, but then we realized in order for this to be useful, people needed to take action on the financial plan or investment plan that they've come up with. And so in order to take that action, you needed to invest this money in a group of funds. So for example, the plan is typically put 10% of your money in money markets, maybe 60% in bonds, 10% in domestic equities, and 20% in regional equities, a portfolio. However, to action on that portfolio, you needed the underlying funds for those portfolios. So we built out the second bit of our business as well, which is the underlying funds. We built a money market fund, a bond fund, domestic equity fund, regional equity funds to make two pieces of our business. So the first piece is what is called in the industry a robo-advisor, the automated advice. And then the second bit is the actual underlying portfolios, sort of what you would find with Vanguard, Fidelity, BlackRock, etc. But also in building those funds, we realized you actually need a system, infrastructure to administer those funds in order to help the savers or the investors reach particular goals. So we built the third bit, which is the transfer agency infrastructure or the fund administration infrastructure to that. And so this is how, so you start by solving one problem, you realize another one, you realize another, and there's actually a fourth one, which is the moving money easily from a person's bank account or mobile money account. We also built that infrastructure. So we kept solving gradual problems, but all of it geared towards helping people, first of all, access professional investment guidance, be able to act on that investment guidance in order to meet an objective. And then by doing so, we are impacting not just one individual, but every other individual that person is responsible for. For example, their children, their parents, their spouse. So that is the sort of impact, just helping people organize their finances in a structured way in order to help them meet their objectives.
That's incredible to think about that problem from the holistic viewpoint. And you say, we're solving a lot. That's entrepreneurship, that's innovation. And, finding a way to be able to solve all of those problems at once and holistically is something that we found really attractive about your business. One other thing I just wanted to note is that when you talked about financial advisors, XENO also has financial advisors that call customers, that make sure they're satisfied, that offer a place for your customers to ask critical questions. And what we've observed is that this kind of like end-to-end technology on the African continent does not work. People do want a human interaction as a part of that. So I think it's a very smart part of your model as well. Maybe tell us the story of a customer, and how they were able to find you and start working with XENO.
I have many customers, but I will tell the story of our first customer. A lady, she was 52, she was about to retire and was worried. She was retiring in 3 years. In Uganda, you retire at 55. It's relatively, we have a relatively young population. Only 2.5% of our population is above 65. You won't believe this. But yeah, so she was 52 in 3 years. Her contract was running out and she was scheduled for retirement. She was worried about, does she actually have enough? And she had always looked for a place where she can put away a little bit, a little extra money, not risk it, but safely, but it should grow. She didn't really care about at what rate, as long as it grew a little bit, as long as that place wasn't a bank account where the monthly charges and you charge for the privilege of even checking the balance on your account. And so somebody referred that to us, to me, and she called me to her office, sat down with her 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes, and I have to say, this was before we got our licenses to operate. So at the time we had this conversation, the regulator told us the licenses would be ready within 2 weeks, and I was confident. I was now meeting prospective customers, etc., as you can imagine. And so I met her within 20 minutes. She said, you know what? I want to be the first customer of this platform. Please make me the first customer. The first time you launch it, I want to be because this is what I've been looking for. If I had this 20 years ago, I would be in a much better place. However, the licenses took longer than 2 weeks. But she called me each of these weeks. She called me after 1 week, after the second week, after the third week, after the fourth week, after we only got her licenses 5-6 weeks later. And indeed, she was the first customer. I literally walked to our office to onboard her. It failed, we failed to onboard after walking there, but we onboarded her subsequently. And then she walked me to the next office to onboard another person. 3 years later, which was last year, the year before last, she retired. And believe this or not, she came to our office for the first time. I have the picture to prove this. She said, you and your company have changed my life. What is even quite impressive about her is the way she used to deposit money on her account. In Uganda, there is no easy way to transfer money from a bank account to another subscription service. So she would literally walk and draw money from her bank account and then walk to our custodian bank and deposit the physical cash. And she did it religiously for the 3 years she was a customer. And when she retired, she hasn't drawn down that money yet. She's still, in fact, occasionally she sends us a check. So that's one interesting customer story. We are able to help reach their objective, but continue to have a relationship with us even after that.
That's incredible. What a great example and start to product market fit.
Yes.
So tell me, what is the long-term vision of XENO? Where do you see the company in 5 years?
So for me, really, it is first to directly, and for me, I would say 5 years, 10 years, to directly allow me to stretch it to 10 years, to directly impact. And when I say directly impact, to directly be able to advise, help them act on the advice 20 million people on the continent. And so our thesis internally is every individual that we help normally is responsible for 4 more people. Those 4 more people would typically be 1 or 2 children, whether or not they're their own biological children in Africa. That happens a lot. A spouse and a parent. Yeah. And so when you add that up, each person that we help sort of straighten their finances, help them to save, help them to fund. Part of it comes from a wish that if our parents had this kind of guidance and were able to save religiously and invest in saving religion, we would be in a much better place. So if we can help organize that capital for each individual and we are able to reach directly 20 million, we would have impacted the lives of 5 times that number of people. So 100 million people in terms of impact. That's what our objective is.
Great. Incredible. I mean, just the ability to leverage technology and reach large groups of people and their families and have a strong impact is something that we really appreciate about it being an emerging markets investor. And also being an investor that's providing access to need to haves, of which fintech is one of those important sectors. So last question for you is how did we as investors in your company help you reach your goals to grow and scale, or how will we as investors, since we only invested a couple weeks ago, assist XENO in reaching its long-term goals?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to commend you for investing in a market like this. It's everyone is finding it really difficult, but there are gems still around, and we are one of those really shining gems, even if we say it ourselves. And I commend you for just maintaining that conviction which you developed long before the market turned or is turning. And so the capital that we're raising right now is one to broaden access, reach a lot more customers within our current market, which is Uganda, but deepen access, deepen the number of things that people can use our platform for, but also broaden access in terms of reaching a second market. In this time, in this case, we're reaching a second market, which we have defined internally. But those are the objectives. We want to accelerate our growth within the current market and also open up in a second market and set up shop. That's really what this round that you have led, been so kind enough to lead, is going to help us with.
Incredible. Last question, which has come out of our discussion today, is we're recording this in June of 2022 at a time where the markets are at an inflection point. Global markets are declining. We have inflationary concerns and frankly, just inflation. How is that? You're an investment manager, that's your background. You're also a quantitative economist and you're kind of a quantitative mathematician. What is your view of the markets and how will it impact XENO?
Yeah, so my view of the market is you actually really have to be we sent out a newsletter to our clients 2 days ago. Part of it is the markets will always behave how they want. You have no control of the market. All you have control over is your finances, the decisions you make around those finances. And the markets will always turn. You're investing over a 10-year period, there will be a difficult period. Sometimes you will take a break, sometimes you will sit out the storm, but the market will always be there. So it just really depends on how you use it and how you position. Are you deeply involved in a particular sector? Maybe you have to broaden it a little bit. But particularly for our investors in Uganda, the markets have within the East African region haven't been as roiled as you would find on Wall Street or in the City of London or in Singapore, Beijing. And so though inflation has accelerated, but in order to stay ahead of inflation, you still need to invest. If you just sit down on your hands, the inflation will burn through that cash pile like a hot knife through butter. And so it is really important to be a bit, from an investor's perspective, to be selective in terms of the quality of positions that you take, to have a long-term perspective. It is not, you're not going to measure success by what happens this quarter or next quarter, even the next 1 year. The next 1 year is going to be very difficult, but you still have to stay in the market in some sense in order to actually get your money to grow. And so I am a fundamental optimist. You can't be an investor if you're not an optimist. You'd be an insurer. You take out insurance against everything. And so you have to select carefully, select quality, maybe reduce the risk a little bit, but fundamentally, if you have even a relatively longer time horizon, take the risk. And of course, many assets have been repriced to lower levels now. There's no better time to enter the market than now. But again, it just depends on your circumstances as well.
Great points. I wholeheartedly agree, but I am also an optimist and a long-term investor. So I agree with that approach. Aiko, it's been great to spend this time with you and to share your work and to share the company that you've built with our supporters and our investors. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you soon.
Sounds good.